Good morning. Here we are starting on adding and subtracting rational numbers on day 1. Here's our objective. I will be able to add positive integers by counting up and negative integers by counting down. So we're going to be using number lines, counting up for positive integers, counting down for negative integers. And the second thing we're going to do today is that we're going to know the opposite of a number is called the additive inverse. Because the sum of those two numbers is 0. So two things. One is working with number lines, adding positives and adding negatives. And the second is this vocabulary word, additive inverse. Okay, so here's our first number line. We are counting up and counting down. Use the number line below to practice counting up and counting down. Counting up starting at 0 corresponds to positive numbers, and counting down starting at 0 corresponds to negative numbers. So if we're at 0 and we want to add, let's say we want to add -4, we're going to go backwards 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course we end up at -4. If we want to get to number positive 8, so we want to add 8, we're going to go up 8. And of course we land at positive 8. Now if we want to do -3, if we want to add -3 and we want to add positive 7, we're going to start at 0. And we're going to go backward 3. That gets us to -3. And then we want to go forward 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this tells us that -3 plus 7 gets us to -4. So we're going forward for positive, backward for negative. And for now we're just dealing with addition, not subtraction. Okay, a couple just check-in questions. Where do you begin when locating a number on the number line? We're always going to begin at 0. Keyword here is when you're locating a number. So say for example you have -4 plus 8. We're going to go back, going to start at 0, we're going to go back 4, and then we're going to go forward 8. Now we're not going to go backward 4 and then go back to 0 and go forward 8. This is just when we are locating a number. Okay. What do you call the distance between a number and 0 on a number line? Whether it is a negative number or a positive number, this should be a word you know from last year. The word is absolute value. So the absolute value of -9 is 9. The absolute value of 6 is 6 because it means the distance from 0. Okay. What is the relationship between 7 and -7? Well, they are opposites. They are also each other's additive inverse. Additive inverse is a fancy way to say opposite. Because when you add 7 plus -7, well, let's look at that on the number line. We're starting at 0, and we're going to go forward 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'm adding -7, so I'm going to go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I end up at 0. So this shows that they are opposites. It also shows that they are additive inverse. It's our fancy vocabulary word for opposite. Okay, for this whole unit, we're going to be working with something called the integer game. The integer game is a card game, and you are going to play it at some point this week, two times actually. So you're always going to have 4 cards, and you're practicing adding up these 4 cards in different ways. So in this case, what is the sum of the card values shown? Use the counting on method. That's the counting on the number line method on the provided number line to justify your answer. So we're going to start at 5. So we start at 0, we're going forward 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to go, this is negative 5. So first I'm going to write this is forward, backward, backward, forward. So I'm here, I'm going to go backward 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to get us back to 0. We're going to go backward 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And lastly, we're going to go forward 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that corresponds to positive 4. So we added up all these numbers and we end up at positive 4. We know that 5 and negative 5 make 0. So then we're really just looking at the negative 4 and the 8. When we add up negative 4 and 8, we get a positive 4. What card or combinations of cards would you need to get back to 0? Well, right now we're at positive 4. If we're at positive 4, we need to get to 0. We need to go backward 4 spaces. And if we're going backwards, that means we're going to need a negative number. So negative 4. You could also say you need a negative 2 and negative 2. You could also say you could do a negative 1 and a negative 3. There's a lot of different combinations. Okay. Lastly, we have our vocabulary. So, the additive inverse. Additive implying when you add them. Inverse implying opposite. The additive inverse of a number is the number added that results in a sum of 0. 0. This is the same as the opposite of a number. For example, the opposite of negative 5 is 5. And negative 5 plus 5 equals 0. So, negative 5 is the additive inverse of 5. Okay, when you get to playing the integer game, here are the rules. Each player is dealt 4 cards. The dealer then sets the rest of the cards in a pile face down and discards the top card facing up. So you have a stack of cards and then you have 1 card facing up. The goal of the game is to get your cards to add to equal 0. Each person always has 4 cards in their hand. So during your turn, you can either take the discarded card or you can take a card from the pile. At this point, you have 5 cards in your hand. You have to choose which one you would like to discard and put into the discard pile. The game continues until someone has a sum of 0, and you circle around until someone has all 4 cards that add up to 0. Okay, so right now you have your independent work, and have fun.